Hey Porsche community, just wanted to give everyone an overview of my Android head unit, experience with it so far. I know we're discussing this on the forums to no end and everyone's mileage varies. So this is not an installation video, obviously mine's already installed, but I'll give you an overview of how I routed everything and a couple issues I'm having with it and just my setup in general. So my car is a 987.2 Cayman with Sound Package Plus. Because I have Sound Package Plus, it complicated the installation somewhat, meaning I could not have connected through amplified out jack. I had to splice the wiring harness and connect through RCA output, which is not amplified. Documented all of that in a post I've made on Rennlist. I'll include the link in the description to that. So besides Sound Package Plus, my car doesn't really have anything extraordinary. As far as the unit that I have, it is the Qualcomm top of the line that they had on the Owtosin official store with the 5G or 4G connection. Maybe we'll begin with the fit and finish, which I think is spot on. I mean, I doubt anybody who is unaware of what this unit is will assume it's anything but OEM Porsche. The buttons, the button feel, the color gradient on the black is 99% match. The RGB backlight is also 99% match. I'll show you the values that I have for that. I routed the GPS and the cell antenna through, there is a hole under the driver's firewall that comes out on the battery compartment, and literally the antennas are sitting here. It's a fairly easy route. Again, I don't want to take the whole thing apart to show you, but if you're doing this install yourself, you'll figure it out fairly easily. Just behind the battery, there's a hole with a rubber plug. You just make a small incision on the plug and wire the cables through there. The USB connections and all the auxiliary stuff I have coming out of here. My car had an optional 12-volt adapter here that I removed. So here's my SIM card. I've labeled everything, and I'm not sure what I'm going to plug in here. Probably tire pressure monitor and maybe, I don't know, maybe an ODB reader or something like that. The charge cable for cell phone, I got one of these accordion cables from Amazon. The problem is that this shelf here doesn't really fit my phone, so I just rest it on the seat or leave it kind of hanging. Not ideal, but in an emergency this gives you power to your phone. The rear camera, I don't have the front camera. The rear camera, I'm using the same one that came with the kit from Owtosin. It's here, not ideal. The stupid North American bumpers totally block my right side, which backing out of my driveway makes it a problem. I'm gonna go with the bumper camera, the drill hole one eventually, but for now this works. The cables for the camera I routed again. I think everyone's experience is going to be different. I ended up going under this panel. I didn't remove the panel entirely, just kind of lifted it and tucked in the cables there. Then they're going behind this carpet, which is very easy to remove, and then tucked under the transmission tunnel. And yeah, they're just tucked in back there. There's a few posts on Rennlist and Facebook groups about how to properly connect the rear camera. I followed one of those, let's put it that way. I did use a dedicated 12-volt power from the unit to the camera rather than getting power from the lights, just because I wanted the ability to use the camera on demand and not only when the car is in reverse. I do not have the front camera. We'll probably get that installed. So as for the unit itself, mine is not the top of the line Qualcomm. I think I have only 4 gigs of RAM. but it's Qualcomm 665 with 64 gigs internal storage. I'm using Vivid Launcher. The launcher that came with it, didn't quite care for it. It's not customizable. You can't change these shortcuts. Didn't quite like how it looks. Vivid does the job for me. So yeah, performance-wise, no issues. I can, I program these keys. You can switch between applications. Waze works, Google Maps, everything else. Pretty snappy. Spotify, tuned in, whatever you use for music. I had no issues with performance that really weren't any complaints. As for the sound quality, also no complaints. I think it might actually sound better than the original head unit. Again, it might be because I'm using unamplified RCA outputs, so I'm letting the car amplifier handle all the frequencies and allocate them to different speakers. But yeah, can't really tell from the video, but it sounds pretty great. I'm not an audiophile. I think I use fairly pedestrian equalizer settings, boost the bass, reduce the mids, boost the treble. Your typical basic pop curve. For settings, I have loudness on, bass on at the lowest setting, and subwoofer off, obviously, because I don't need that. Another weird quirk here is in this common setting, everything works as it should. So when I adjust the balance, it does exactly what it needs to do. But if I use specialty, it's all kinds of messed up. Like right now, the sound is coming out of right and out of rear. So this doesn't work at all. But common is fine, so I'm leaving it at that. I'm still trying to normalize the volume across different applications. When switching between sources like Bluetooth, YouTube, radio, the volumes are quite different. Google Maps was particularly bad. It was way too loud compared to other sources. But luckily there's a setting under car settings, navigation, and here under the mixing for navigation, I have it in mixing mode and -10 for the ratio, and it made things much better. It's actually usable now. Some other settings for the car menu. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, I have enabled, but I disabled it from auto starting. Because my unit is 4G, I use all applications natively from the device rather than running them off my phone. Unless I need Teams or something, I almost never use Android Auto, but if I do, I just start it within the application rather than auto running it. By default, when you connect this unit, when it was new, it starts Android Auto as soon as your phone connects via Bluetooth. And for most people, that will probably be the correct setting. For LED backlight, they don't give you the values. Okay, great. I thought they'd at least give the RGB numbers, but that's what mine is set to. It's a very close match. The back panel on the other buttons in the car is set to max because these lights are fairly brighter. So when both set to max, it matches really close. Steering wheel keys. My wheel doesn't have any keys, so not to worry about that. Amplifier already showed. Nav already showed. Driving settings, yeah, really not much here. Under extra, it's just reverse camera options. The trajectory doesn't really matter because it doesn't sync with the curve of the steering input, but it's there. Here, under factory settings, the password is 126 for all of them. My radio, because I'm in Canada, is set to North America 2. I find that that's the correct settings for radio stations here. Voice panel, I'm still trying to figure out the balances here. The radio is still a bit too loud, Bluetooth is a bit too quiet, but that's where I'm at right now. CAN bus, that's what it at. I didn't touch it from the factory. Key study. Well, the front panel is what I've reprogrammed. So if you press a key, it basically highlights which key you're currently working with. And if you long press it, you assign the values. Or you assign the actions rather, what the key does. So for example, I had this set up to applications. And if you long press it, you determine what happens when the short press and what happens on the long press. These icons don't have any descriptions. Some of them are self-explanatory, and some I don't really know what they are. For example, I had this all key programmed to launch all apps. At least that's what I think this icon is, but it doesn't work. It's not launching the application menu, so I'll have to play around with this a little bit more. Again, lack of documentation is evident here. And under other, here are my settings. Again, haven't really touched too much here. Oh, these display values for contrast and brightness and such, they do nothing. I'm not sure if this is for a different panel or if this root is completely disabled, but changing any of these numbers does not have any effect on the display. I've set them to 20, set them to 100, and display it still looks the same. So yeah, I find the contrast in the unit a bit set too high. It's really evident when watching videos or photos. Again, I'm not doing that when driving, obviously, so it doesn't bother me too much. But on the maps, for example, the greens and the reds do appear a bit dark. I wish I could change it a little bit, but out of the box, it's fine. Like, you know, it's bright and contrasty, so it's okay. So what else? That's about it. Yeah, as far as settings and my my setup, I haven't done anything else to it. So I'll show you what I mean by the camera. So you see my camera can turn on. This is front, this is rear, just on demand. Car is not even on, it's in neutral, and I get camera. But the stupid North American bumperettes get in the way. And then if I had a front camera, I would be able to switch to the front, but I don't have that. A couple issues I'm having with it. So number one, when I'm using the phone, my callers are hearing a strong echo. And that is because I'm using auxiliary mic here. But on my unit, the internal mic didn't disconnect when I connected the auxiliary mic, which means both are active, and I tested this, and there's no way to turn off the internal mic in the settings. So literally when I'm talking to somebody on the phone, I have to use my finger to plug this mic. I'm sure eventually I'm going to disassemble this thing and cut the mic or plug it with something, but again, really kind of annoying issue that affects the quality of life in terms of usage, because most of us are getting these units to get the Bluetooth functionality and the phone convenience. So annoying, but fairly easy to fix, I assume. So the other issue I'm having with this is going to be probably more difficult to troubleshoot, and I don't think it will ever get fixed. I haven't seen anybody else record this problem, so I suspect it might be just my unit or my CAN bus specific with my car. But this is the problem. So my car is running now. When I go to this menu on my Porsche computer, if I select any feature that's to do with the head unit, so such as telephone or audio, that entire screen besides the speedometer is going to crash. And luckily I have tire pressure monitor is inactive right now, so when I restart the car, it resets back to tire pressure warning. But if I had that fixed, I don't know if the screen would ever come back, because it reboots back to the same position it was when it was shut off. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I select audio right now, that whole thing is going to go blank, and no matter what I do, I won't be able to get it back. Boom. No matter what I do here, hold, press, the screen is dead. So that's something I can live without, personally, because I wasn't going to use these features anyways. But when the time comes to, I don't know, maybe sell the car or something else, definitely a really annoying thing that should be addressed. But I'm not really holding my breath, considering Owtosin support doesn't even understand what I'm trying to explain to them. And the third issue seems to be universal, as a lot of you people are complaining about it, is how it slides and locks in place in the original frame, because it doesn't. Yes, it looks flush and fit right now, but it's literally held there by Velcro and some double-sided tape and foam. Honestly, that's really disappointing, considering the cost and considering the fact that they made the frame specific for Porsche, but the locking mechanisms on the side, literally all they had to do is reposition one of the metal tabs 5 millimeters down, and it would have worked. So for $1,000, that's something I expected to not have to jerry-rig, but looks like that's how it is. Now, it hasn't jumped out on me, it hasn't shifted. I've been driving fairly aggressively, it stays in place. So in that regard, I guess it works, but definitely something they should improve. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. For me, this was a must-have. This car is my daily driver, so I need Android Auto, navigation, all the apps. An absolute must-have for me was OEM look. I could not bear having a Sony or Kenwood or something else here that doesn't look OEM. I think it elevates the car visually and in terms of creature comforts massively. It instantly updates the interior. Again, 987.2 aged fairly gracefully, I think, but this immediately modernizes it. So despite the shortcomings, this was a good buy. Definitely room for improvement. Definitely they need better support, better documentation, and at least make these things fit. But, you know, considering it's an Android unit from China, it's highly customizable. And usually in my experience, when something's highly customizable, it is also creates a lot of variance for user experience. So if you know what you're doing, and if you don't mind tinkering around or know how to dig into the Android settings, this should be a good purchase, I think.